How do I explain to Michaela that don't worry, everything's safe, even though we're having to sit there with security and a security dog outside the house all night?
I've done stuff with people and I've realised that like the scrutiny on footballers is insane. Is that something you talk with David about, like kind of the outside pressure and the I'll be honest, the shit that you get? Is that something that you talk about where you go, you just have, because it does affect people. You know what I mean?
So
even if you say it doesn't.
The situation Leeds was in was a pretty diabolical one in terms of we were looking like we were going to go down, which eventually we did. And it is then like, I just thought, wow, I was getting, because until then I was on Twitter, like not actively tweeting, but I always had Twitter until about, I'd say mid-March. And it just, honestly, the abuse got so bad, like threatening like family and like even my little girl. So in the end, I was just like, do you know what? I'll come off Twitter. I'll just like deactivate the account for a bit. So did that, and then I was speaking to David through it all, and he was like, "You just, as you would, just ignore them," and give me like coping ways and stuff. And I remember we was playing Newcastle at home, and I missed a penalty, but ironically, this sounds weird. I played well, and like it was the game where Big Sam was like, "It's a shame about the penalty, but that was more like it. That's what I need from you." And so I missed the penalty, and then was walking across the pitch afterwards, just like after I got changed back to the tunnel. And Michaela rang me. She was like, are you all right? I was like, yeah, why? And she said, oh, like it's all over social media that like you've just been attacked by some fans. I was like, no. I said, I'm fine. I'm in the stadium still. There's no problem. I was like, I'll ring you when I get in the car. There's no issue, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, got in the car, started driving, and there's crazy traffic after the game, and I think there was like an accident. And then Michaela's rang me again, and she's like, there's people outside the house. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, no, like they're sat outside the house. I was like, because we live opposite a pub. I was like, are you sure they're not like just parked up because there's no space in the car park for the pub or whatever? And she was like, no, like honestly, they've not moved. They've been sat here for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay. I said, I should be home in about 20 minutes. And I'll give you a ring when I'm coming into the village. And it took a bit longer than 20 minutes. It took probably like half an hour. And I've rang her as I'm coming into the village. And I said, like, are they still there? She said, yeah, they've not moved. They're just literally parked outside. So then as I've come up, I was like, right, send Dad down the drive now, because my dad was at home. I was like, get him to walk down as I'm coming in. And so as I've drove to turn into my drive, literally across the drive entrance, so I can't even get to the gate. It's like 2 cars like blocked like that. I'm like, what's going on? And they had their windows open, and like I was like looking at them and thinking. And I went to like put my window down, and as I went to put my window down, they just put their windows up and like stared at me. And then the gate opened because my dad had opened it, and then they drove off. I was like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to threaten me or something?
What, off the back of a penalty miss, do you think?
Yeah, and I think it was like a culmination of the last few weeks and everything that had gone on. And like I took a lot of the kind of flack for it, rightly or wrongly, but the way they expressed it was like, it was crazy. And then it goes from then using David to like sort out how I'm feeling performance-wise and making sure I'm all right, to then I've got to then deal with like Michaela's doesn't feel safe in her own home. I'm angry. I said, I'm not like upset and stuff about the abuse. I said, I'm angry that someone's come to the house and done that. And then that night we ended up, the club were good, to be fair. They ended up putting security on the house for the whole night. I guess it's like coping mechanisms and way to just kind of shut out the noise, and I guess feel safe in your house again. Because it was like, I was like, how do I explain to Michaela that don't worry, everything's safe, even though we're having to sit there with security and a security dog outside the house all night? Like, how do I explain that to her? So for me, he was just helping me get through it and helping, I guess, us as a family like deal with the whole shit show.
The thing about your situation is Saturday is not movable.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like most jobs, you go, I'll just come in like middle of next week, and you know, like the leaky tap can wait or whatever. But it's just that that kind of the football's a machine, and you're a tiny cog in it, aren't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
and it keeps
doesn't
churning
stop.
no matter what.
Yeah, as I'm older and stuff, I do go, something's going on at home or something, because that person is not enjoying their football or whatever. You know what I mean? And you go, it's a mad thing, but how are you meant to play when you've got... So you see the value of David in those situations more than ever, just going, no, forget about that. I don't know what you do. He's just such a mad... Is he someone who is naturally that way anyway, or is obviously his training is kind of... But he must have that kind of brain anyway to...
Well, I know that he was, like, before he got into psychology, he was in the army and in, like, special forces. So he was quite used to being under, like, extreme pressure and dealing with high-pressure situations. And then I think from that, he's, like, then ventured into psychology, and he's used... So before he's even studied psychology, he's learned ways that he's probably taught himself through the situations he's been in.